The year is 2017, and that means that next year will mark the 100th anniversary since Austria-Hungary ceased existing as a country. But what if for whatever reason, this old empire was suddenly recreated today with the exact same borders that it had in 1914 just prior to the First World War? What exactly would Austria-Hungary look like if it existed today, and could it actually survive for very long? To start with, 14 different countries would lose all or some of their territory to the newly created empire. This would make the empire the 39th largest country in the modern world, roughly the same size as Myanmar in Asia, but Austria-Hungary would be the second largest country in Europe behind only Russia. In terms of population, however, the empire would be home to 68,763,000 people, which would place it as the third most populous nation in Europe, behind both Russia and Germany but ahead of France. Taking the entire world into consideration though, and Austria-Hungary would have the 20th largest population, larger than Thailand but remaining behind Turkey. This population would also be outrageously diverse, just like the old empire in 1914 was. In a sense, the struggles of nationalism within the empire throughout its history contributed significantly to the empire's downfall 100 years ago, and this would continue to be a major problem today. Like the old empire, Germans and Hungarians would make up the two largest and most powerful ethnicities within the empire, but even combined they would only make up about 1/3 of the total imperial population. The other largest ethnic groups would be the Ukrainians, Czechs, Romanians, Poles, Croats, and to a lesser degree Serbs, Bosniaks, Slovenes, Italians, and Roma peoples. As you can see, there is not a single ethnic group with any clear majority in the country, while power would be vested almost entirely with the Germans and Hungarians alone. Austria-Hungary was rather unique in the fact that the empire had two capital cities, Vienna and Budapest. Since these two cities would remain as the largest cities in the empire today, and are already the capitals of Austria and Hungary, it is highly likely that they would become the dual capitals of the modern empire as well. The top 5 largest cities in the empire would be Vienna, Budapest, Prague, Zagreb, and Krakow. Despite the fact that there were dozens of languages spoken in the empire in 1914, the only official languages were German and Hungarian. This policy would likely continue today since these two languages would be the largest languages spoken within the country, with Hungarian being understood by 17.5% of the population and German by 16%, together adding to just over 1 out of every 3 people in the empire. But this would be very problematic for the other 2 out of every 3 people who wouldn't speak either language and would serve as another massive problem to keeping the country together. Czech would be the 3rd largest language, while Ukrainian and Russian would also be major languages understood by over 10% of the population. To just get to a point where 75% of the population could understand each other, you would have to go through 7 languages by also adding Romanian and Polish, since the population that speaks Ukrainian is also largely the same population that speaks Russian. The remaining 25% would be 6 other various languages, meaning that there would be 13 major languages spoken within the empire. All of this land and people would mean that the modern empire would have a GDP of $1.18 trillion, which would make the empire the world's 15th largest economy ahead of Mexico, but remaining just behind Spain, Australia, and Russia. This also means that the empire would have a respectable GDP per capita of $17,160, which would place it at the 39th highest in the world ahead of present-day Estonia and an independent Slovakia, but just behind Trinidad and Tobago and an independent Czech Republic. With a moderately powerful economy, the empire would also be estimated to have a modest military budget of $11.97 billion. This would be the 19th largest military budget in the world, ahead of Spain, but keeping behind the budgets of both Colombia and the United Arab Emirates. The imperial budget would be funding a military with 188,000 active-duty soldiers, the 30th largest military in the world, ahead of Germany and Syria, but remaining smaller than both Morocco and France. Pretty much all of the empire's territory would be located inside Europe, except for this tiny chunk of China less than 1 square kilometer in size in the city of Tianjin. Austria-Hungary occupied this tiny piece of land as sovereign territory briefly between 1901 and 1917 when it was returned to China, but since we're recreating the empire to exact borders in 1914, then this area would have to be returned. About 30,000 Chinese citizens living here would suddenly find themselves to be citizens of the Austro-Hungarian Empire as a result. As far as religion goes, Catholics would account for the majority of the population at 44.37% of the population, while Orthodox Christians would be the second largest at 18.2%. Protestants would only be 4%, while Sunni Muslims would be just 3.3%. Austria-Hungary today would also have a very large atheist population, accounting for nearly 20% of the entire population, or nearly 1 out of every 5 people. Finally, we would have to settle on somebody to become the present-day emperor of the empire. This guy, named Otto von Habsburg, was the last crowned prince of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, born in 1912 as the son of the last real emperor. He didn't renounce his claim to the throne of Austria until 1961, and died somewhat recently in 2011 at the age of 98. His son, Karl von Habsburg, who is still alive today, therefore would likely become the emperor of this new empire, the direct grandson of the last reigning emperor in 1918. But would this empire actually be able to last very long with all of its difficulties, or would it collapse into the dustbin of history just like the old empire did in 1918? Leave your thoughts and comments below, and if you enjoyed what you just watched, I hope that you'll subscribe to my channel by clicking here. This topic over Austria-Hungary being reunited today was voted on directly by fans over at the official Real Life Lore Patreon, which you can go to by clicking here. There are new votes every month for a new Empire reunited video, so if you'd like to get involved in that or just want to support the channel, then please go ahead and check that out. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you around next time.